Question number 7. How can I differentiate my video podcast from the competition and stand out in a crowded marketplace? I want to make sure that my podcast is unique and offers something that other podcasts do not. Well, I think step number 1 is understanding who your competitors are. And, you got to spend some time studying them. You got to make sure that you got to know what they're all about. You got to see what some of the things are that they're doing. It's not always, I don't think you have to reinvent the wheel every time. I think, there are some best practices within podcasting that are, it's probably in your best interest to stick to them. And then in other instances, there are things that you could do differently. You might have a certain niche where you look at all the, you're noticing that all these other podcasts within that niche do this one thing specifically all the time. And maybe you think that that's not necessary. You could maybe depart from that a little bit and try it from a different angle. But really it just comes down to research and experimentation, and just being creative with things, trying out new segments, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. But differentiation. Yeah, I also think being unique sometimes is, it's a little overrated to be unique. You want to be the best. People like to be entertained, and they like to be educated, and they like to be informed. How can you do one or all of those things better than others? Maybe there's a podcast you listen to and you're like, man, I really like this podcast, and they give a lot of good information, but it's just so boring, or it takes them so long to get to the point, or maybe just the information is missing some substance. How can you elaborate and give more than some of these other podcasters? And a lot of times all that stuff just comes down to preparation and, everything you do leading up to the podcast. You can, work on like a rebrand of some kind, like content aside. Maybe your podcast branding needs a little bit of a revamp. Maybe it's a little bit boring. Maybe it's not eye-catching. Maybe it's not interesting to people at a glance. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but in this day and age, when when a thumbnail can determine whether or not someone actually clicks on a video of yours, everyone's judging a book by its cover. So consider, looking at your branding. If you're not a graphic designer and you design something yourself, maybe have a graphic designer friend take a look at your stuff and give their thoughts on it. It also, that's the other thing too. You can reach out to people and get some feedback. Ask people, friends, family, people who might be interested in your podcast to give you feedback on what you could do differently. But it is a crowded marketplace for sure. Podcasting is definitely oversaturated at the moment. It is very hard to stick out, especially if you're brand new, or if you're a smaller podcast, or if you have a very small niche. It's hard to break out. There's a few big players now, and it's not like it used to be back in the day where there were much fewer podcasts and it was a little bit easier to rise to the top. It's not quite as easy anymore. So it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of effort. I'm in that same position as well. I'm still kind of working my way up the ladder. And it's tough, but I'm still in an experimental phase myself. And that can be a fun place to be for a while, because, you really don't have any boundaries on you. You can kind of do whatever you want. So play around, experiment, get some feedback. And I think that's my tip there.